Give me the overall potential of the Loop, the Central Business District.
Well, I think it's phenomenal because in part because it's our mass transit system, and then all of the cultural and physical amenities. I mean, you want to talk about all the pluses of Chicago? I think we did this, before, between our universities, our hospitals, our park, our beautiful skyline, the rivers, 38 miles of waterfront parks, lakefront parks, and beaches. We have 78 neighborhoods. The diversity of our neighborhoods and the cultural diversity. What do we got? 8,000 restaurants. We're the third largest theater district in the world after London and New York.
You have a downtown with great transit connections. Okay.
Correct.
It's connecting to an office market that's not in good shape. 30% vacant.
No. 22.
22% vacant.
Maybe you maybe 23 if maybe it's 21 with another 3% of sublease space, so maybe it's 24.
What do you do about that?
Well, Chicago just needs people to get back to work, right?
And when you say back to work, back to the office?
Yeah, back to the office. Okay, and that'll change the vibrancy and let's say the retail sales, the performance of local retailers. But that's really the retail sales in the Loop is mostly ground floor retail, and it's coming mostly from restaurants and Walgreens and drugstores and 7-Elevens and the like. So it's not like there's huge retail sales in the Loop. There's over 800,000 employees that work downtown.
How many are working downtown right now?
So there's only 400,000. So on any given day, we're missing 400,000 people.
Which is a big problem.
It's a big problem unless you need a parking spot.
So now we're on to the answer. It sounds to me like is office to residential conversion, and so now it sounds like we've come to the conclusion that there is excess. I mean, it's time to say, okay, there's excess office. It's not going to come back to where it was. Maybe to think about different uses.
Yeah, but we've been doing it for a long time. I mean, I did the JW Marriott in 2008, so that was 610 key hotels, $390 million project. But that was 15 years ago.
And tell me about that, because it sounds like conversion, and I've been hearing from people in New York that it's not as easy as it may seem, but there is, if you got a full bag of tricks and some experience and know how to do this stuff, it may be more readily available than it seems also. How do you view it? And then tell me, how do lenders view it?
So far, I think a lot of lenders are interested in the office to residential conversion. You got to be able to buy, you got to have a low basis in the building, right, to be able to make the numbers work. But if you can start with a $50 to $100 square foot basis, and then spend another $250 a foot on average, that's what these conversions cost. You can be slightly less than ground up construction. Right. Well, then you got to add soft costs though too, Jerry. So you're going to be you're going to be $400 plus per foot.
Let's talk about the obstacles.
I think the biggest obstacle right now is interest rates, because it's harder to pencil out these projects if you're building to a 6 to 6.5% yield, and interest rates are 6.5%. There's not a lot of spread. But we're working right now with HUD on our apartments, and right now you can get 30-year, 40-year fixed rate financing at 4.5 to 5. At HUD 221D4 program. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac have some pretty good programs. They're like 5.25 right now, 30-year fixed.
And that's at the federal level. So now, in terms of obstacles or help, and of course, it's timely with the new administration coming in. What do you need from the city?
Well, the TIF subsidy is very helpful. Other thing is like we're landmarking 111, so we get historic tax credits, 20% federal historic tax credit. That's a no-brainer for the city because it comes out of the federal government, right? Not out of the local. I'm serious. The city of Chicago also has tax-exempt housing bonds, which again, that allows us to get about a 1% lower interest rate. So those are, I think, between tax credits, low-income housing tax credits, historic tax credits, tax-exempt housing bonds, and TIF. Those are probably your four tools of public subsidy to stimulate housing.
So you add up all the, you've got the potential. We've talked about the challenges. So what are the real assets that you put against this? What does the central business district really have going for it besides the transportation system?
Well, it's affordable compared to New York and some other cities, both the downtown area and the neighborhoods.
The affordability is a compelling, resource, I guess, in Chicago's case right now. And I would go you one better. I think it's, remarkably affordable, really, if you consider Chicago's a big city, big market. It has the pro sports and the great symphony and the great museums and the, research universities and great hospitals, everything you expect in a great big market like that, but a third of the price of Manhattan, half the price of LA. And, that one, it's so good, it begs explanation. Why is that?
It's a good question. I don't think we're 1/3 of New York. I would have guessed. I don't know what the real number is, but I would have guessed we're like maybe 60% of New York, and maybe we're 75% of LA. I don't know. I don't think New York's 3 times, but it's definitely maybe double and living in New York. I guess that's the number one reason. But also, I think especially young people, they just love the vibe of a big city and all the cultural diversity. And I mean, so when you graduate from college, do you want to move to Cleveland or Cincinnati, or do you want to move to Chicago? You got all these universities in the heartland of the United States. And I tell you, if they're Midwestern people, their number one choice is going to be Chicago.
And, Chicago has a legit claim as it's the capital of the Midwest.
Yeah.
And so, it does draw. It's got the 2 airports,
Right.
Travel is convenient. It's got all that going for it. In the meantime, its population over the last 20 years is down 7%. Its gross product trails the US. Sometimes I can't figure out. I don't know if it's just post-industrial and maybe a little, it was such an industrial base that it's going to see some decline. But where do you think it is in all that? You think it will continue to lose population or stabilize?
Population has grown in, let's call it, some of the more affluent neighborhoods like Lincoln Park and Wicker Park and the like, and it's declined in some of the southern neighborhoods and western neighborhoods where you find poverty and high crime. Families have moved out.
With a growing population, and you see this in growing cities, this neighborhood is hot because this one is too expensive, so it gets pushed over. And they call it gentrification, and call it, whatever it is. But that takes significant population growth to push it. Now, if Chicago doesn't get that to the point where it says, I can't afford downtown anymore, I'm going to the south side. If you don't have that and you don't push out, then you have a beautiful downtown with a moat around it. I think the city's lost a little sense of decorum, not crime, but a good deal of unpleasantry, more so than I'd like to typically would encounter, I think, walking down a city street. And I get the sense almost like Chicago's just kind of got to get a grip, re-engage its sense of decorum. And that to me seems like it'd be crucial downtown. Am I off the mark on that, or is there room for?
Well, I think your comment is accurate, but I think it applies to the world, not to Chicago. I think there's we've lost decorum in our political debate. We've lost decorum in a lot of areas of life and civilization, not just Chicago. But I think that would change a lot, Jerry. Your feeling when you're in downtown Chicago, if I get those 400,000 people that are missing every day, I think that changes the vibe.
Absolutely. I think
when there's twice as many people on the sidewalk, the city feels safer, and it feels like it's a place to be.